You've probably seen a map like this before. This map reflects the divide between countries considered as wealthy and developed nations, known as the Global North, from countries largely considered to be developing, or underdeveloped, known as the Global South. This is what is termed as the North-South divide. But this divide is about so much more than just geography. It's a story of economics, history, and power that continues to shape international relations. So, subscribe now, and let's break down what it really means, and if this North-South divide is still relevant in today's context. What exactly is the North-South divide? At its core, the North-South divide is a socio-economic and political categorization of the world, which splits countries into two broad camps, being the Global North, as well as the Global South. The Global North includes rich, industrialized, and technologically advanced nations. Think of countries like the United States, Canada, Japan, South Korea, and those in Western Europe. Despite this given term of North, it's not purely geographical. This is evidenced by the likes of Australia and New Zealand, being countries in the South, while also considered part of the Global North group. This term, the Global South, encompasses nations which are considered underdeveloped, less industrialized, and often historically colonized. This includes most of Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and large parts of Asia. These countries often face challenges like political instability, higher population growth, and greater vulnerability to climate change. The visual shorthand for this divide is the Brandt line, proposed by former German Chancellor, Willy Brandt, in the 1980s. While a bit outdated, it still provides a useful, if oversimplified, picture of the global wealth gap. This global imbalance didn't just happen, and it's not by accident. Its origins are deeply rooted in history. For instance, for many centuries, European powers in the north colonized major parts of territories, which were largely situated in the south. This colonialism scheme extracted raw materials, wealth, and labor from these nations in the south, in order to fuel industrial revolutions in European countries. This established a pattern where the south served as a supplier of cheap resources, including free labor, while the north developed advanced manufacturing and economies. The divide can also be linked to the Industrial Revolution. This technological leap forward occurred primarily in the north, creating a massive head start in infrastructure, capital, and economic power that many nations in the south are still catching up to. Critics also argue that the global economic order, including trade agreements, international financial institutions, and debt structures, often continue to favor developed nations, perpetuating the cycle of inequality. More than just money, there are many dimensions of the North-South divide. While wealth is the most obvious factor, the North-South split manifests itself in other critical areas. Let's mention some of them. Starting with how political power contributes to the divide between the North and the South. Institutions like the UN Security Council are still dominated by powers from the Global North, and this influences global decision-making. The Global South is then disproportionately impacted by this power dynamic, as its priorities are often sidelined or vetoed. The structural dominance of the Global North extends to other major international financial institutions, most notably the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Some contributors have argued that these two institutions undermine state sovereignty of underdeveloped countries, particularly through the conditions they impose. Another major difference between the North and the South is the standard of living, which is much higher in the North. This is because of higher per capita income, better healthcare, education, and infrastructure. By contrast, many in the South still face low wages, poor housing, and limited access to services. Globalization inequalities also deepen the divide between the North and the South. Developed countries often benefit from trade and technology, while many developing countries remain stuck with exporting raw materials and importing expensive manufactured goods. This unequal exchange often prevents developing countries from catching up with developed countries. Speaking of technology, nations in the North disproportionately have higher access to high-speed internet, advanced healthcare, reliable energy grids, and transportation networks. This technological gap cripples economic development, limits access to critical information and services, and perpetuates cycles of poverty and dependency within the Global South. The environment is another critical concern, as both the Global North and Global South face challenges such as pollution, climate change, and resource depletion. However, developing countries often lack the financial resources to address these issues, despite being among the most vulnerable to environmental damage. This creates a profound injustice, as nations in the Global South, which have contributed the least to global carbon emissions, find themselves disproportionately affected by its most severe consequences, all this without the means to adapt or mitigate these impacts. Consequences faced by the Global South include severe droughts, constant floods, and rising sea levels. Sustainable development is a long-term solution that promotes economic growth while meeting the needs of the present, without compromising the ability of future generations. Nations in the Global North generally possess the wealth, technology, and regulatory frameworks to integrate sustainable principles into their production practices. In contrast, countries in the Global South often face a difficult trade-off, where immediate economic pressures and poverty alleviation measures can hinder their ability to fully implement sustainable development goals. Now here's an interesting question: is the North-South divide still relevant in today's context? Let's discuss that in the next section. However, before we continue, we'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that like button below. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on our latest content. Remember, hitting that subscribe button is free, and it shows us that you appreciate what we do. Getting back to today's video, let's evaluate whether or not the North-South divide is still relevant in today's context. The world is far more complex than a simple binary. The rise of economic powerhouses like China, India, and Brazil, often called emerging economies, blur what is known as the Brandt line. Similarly, there are also northern nations, which are suffering from severe poverty. It is argued that the concept of this North-South divide remains incredibly valuable. It highlights persistent structural inequalities and reminds us that a person's success in life is still profoundly shaped by which part of the world they are born in. This concept also forms a crucial framework for understanding debates about fair trade, climate justice, foreign aid, and global cooperation. The bottom line is that the North-South divide is not about drawing a perfect line on a map. It's about recognizing a historical and ongoing pattern of global disparity. As we grapple with shared challenges like pandemics, economic sanctions, as well as climate change, understanding this divide is the first step towards building a more equitable and cooperative international future. So, share your thoughts with us. Is the North-South divide a useful model in today's interconnected world? Or is it an outdated oversimplification? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out our other videos for more great content. We've got a whole library of helpful and educational videos on public administration, public finance, including in-depth analysis on global politics. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to make sure that you don't miss out when we post new videos. You can also connect with us by following us on social media at ConsultKano or tagging us using the hashtag ConsultKano. Thank you again for watching. Join us again next time for another video. Until then, check out these other videos.